Alrighty, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome everybody to the Sociopath Society Nothing But Facts live stream on a Wednesday in which we are between the hours of Dhuhr and Asr. Let's go straight to the dua and the dhikr that we usually do. And this dhikr is not specific to Wednesdays, it can be done any day. It's usually done after Dhuhr. It was intended by Imam Haddad to be done after Salat-tul-Dhuhr. And so we'll do this, and then we'll stop for 2 minutes of dua. If you don't know why we do this, it's because of the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah, in which the battle of Khandaq was ended through a dua. And the Prophet made a long dua as the Sahaba were becoming exhausted on Monday, and then again on Tuesday. And he was answered on Wednesday, and Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah said it was between the Salatayn. He meant by that between al-Dhuhr wal-Asr. Whenever they used to say the two prayers, he meant by that Dhuhr and Asr. Because between Maghrib and Isha, there's not much activity, right, to talk about. So between the two prayers, he meant between Dhuhr and Asr. Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah understood then that at this point, if that happens to the Messenger, peace be upon him, this will forever be a day of ijabah, a time of ijabah, that the Prophet, that Allah does not descend upon the Messenger with descend upon a messenger a blessing and then take it away. He keeps it. So between Dhuhr and Asr is a Sa'at ijabah, inshallah. Sa'at ijabah means there is a time that we pray and hope that dua will be answered in that time. Okay? And it's not the whole time between Dhuhr and Asr, it's like a window. But if we consistently attempt it, and one day Allah Ta'ala will grant it to us. لا إله إلا الله الملك الحق المبين 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 بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا وكان عند الله وجيها في الدنيا والآخرة ومن المقربين وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نصر من الله وفتح قريب وبشر المؤمنين يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا أنصار الله كما قال عيسى بن مريم للحواريين من أنصاري إلى الله قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم أعوذ نفسي بالله تعالى من كل ما يسمع بأذنين ويبصر بعينين ويمشي برجلين ويبطش بيدين ويتكلم بشفتين حصنت نفسي بالله الخالق الأكبر من شر ما أخاف وأحذر من الجن والإنس وإن يحضرون عز جاره وجل ثناؤه تقدست أسماؤه ولا إله غيره اللهم نجعلك في نهور أعدائي وأعوذ بك من شرورهم وتحيلهم ومكرهم ومكائدهم أطفئ نار من أراد بعداوة من الجن والإنس يا حافظ يا حفيظ يا كافي يا محيط سبحانك يا رب ما أعظم شأنك وعز سلطانك تحصنت بالله وبأسماء الله وبآيات الله وملائكة الله وأنبياء الله ورسل الله والصالحين من عباد الله حصنت نفسي بلا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم اللهم احرسني بعينك التي لا تنام واكنفني بكنفك الذي لا يرام وارحمني بقدرتك علي فلا أهلك وأنت ثقتي ورجائي يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا دارك الهالكين يا دارك الهالكين يا دارك الهالكين اكفني شر كل طارق يطرق بليل أو نهار إلا طارقا يطرق بخير إنك على كل شيء قدير بسم الله أرقي نفسي من كل ما يؤذي ومن كل حاسد الله شفائي بسم الله رقيت اللهم رب الناس أذهب الباس اشفي أنت الشافي وعافي أنت المعافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما ولا ألما يا كافي يا وافي يا حميد يا مجيد ارفع عني كل تعب شديد واكفني من الحد والحديد والمرض الشديد والجيش العديد واجعل لي نورا من نورك وعز من عزك ونصر من نصرك وبهاء من بهائك وعطاء من عطائك وحراسة من حراستك وتأييد من تأييدك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام والمهب العظام أسألك أن تكفيني من شر كل ذي شر إنك أنت الله الخالق الأكبر وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والحمد لله رب العالمين ظاهرا وباطنا وعلى كل حال يا أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, we'll take a few minutes for personal dua. صلى الله وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Today's topic is a sort of a current affair, but it's more of a development in the world of mental illness / identity, and it has a connection to theology because we do have free will. And any trend, any idea that seeks to negate that and take it away from us seems in the beginning as a very generous ideology and a very merciful ideology and tolerant ideology. But in fact, you're being robbed of your willpower. And what I'm going to summarize what I'm about to read for you is that to be a sociopath was always considered one of the worst things you could call somebody. I mean, someone very sensitive to himself, but completely insensitive to other people's pain. All right? And that's why, you want to sit here if you want to, so we can contribute, inshallah. And Ali, if you ever want to say anything, you can hop over there. So to be a sociopath was always considered the worst thing you could say to somebody. Like Hitler was a sociopath. Right? Trump is a sociopath. All these, like, the worst thing that you could ever say to someone is that they're a sociopath, right? But what we see happening here is that it's becoming considered a genetic disorder that people identify with and learn to live with, okay? So now we're in a world where there's no good and evil, okay? And slowly willpower is being taken away and being replaced with it's genetic, right? So this really is the modern day Jabriya. And there's no upbringing. Like whatever happened to pure old upbringing. Like you weed bad characteristics out of a kid, or you stifle them, those characteristics. Certain things should be weeded out or stifled. There's no doubt about that. Not everything, like Freud said, should be out in the open, like just release it. And if you stifle something, it gets pent up. No, certain things, you could end it really quick in a child and it will never come back, and he'll be thankful for it, and he'll hate to see it in another kid. For example, if a kid has temper tantrums, or if a kid breaks down, and at a certain age, it's not really appropriate for them to just break down when they don't get what they want. If you literally just tell them to stop, pull yourself together, guess what happens? They stop and they pull themselves together. They never do it again. When they then see it in another kid, they get really upset. Like they hate it. So you did them a favor. Okay? So here, let's read this article here about a woman who says that she identifies as a sociopath, and that this is basically how she was born, and that she's had the courage, they always say that word, right? It's always that word, the courage to open up about her being a sociopath. And other people open up. So how do they open up? They say, you know what? I've always wanted to stab this kid. You want me to move the mic for a second?
No, it's not. To focus? That's like the most sociopathical thing ever.
It is, right?
It's like increasing, right?
Yeah. 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 Okay, so she says, sociopaths are modern-day boogeymen. The word sociopath is casually tossed around to describe the worst, most amoral among us. But they are not boogeymen. They are real people, according to Patrick Gagne, widely misunderstood. Gagne, if I'm pronouncing it right, wrote Sociopath. Patrice Gagne, it must be from Quebec or something. Patrice Gagne wrote a book, Sociopath, her buzzy forthcoming memoir, to try to correct some of those misunderstandings and provide a fuller picture of sociopathy, which is more frequently referred to as antisocial personality disorder. Okay, now keep in mind now. Oh, so this is a disorder now. It's no longer that your parents didn't raise you. It's a disorder. So we need to sympathize with you because you want to do all these violent acts against other people. Now, what does she say? As a child, Gagne found herself compelled toward violent outbursts in an effort to try to compensate for the emotional apathy that was her default. As she got older, those compulsive behaviors turned into criminal ones, like trespassing and theft. Eventually, she discovered that there was a name, the dreaded word, that could be used to describe and explain her experiences of remorselessness, criminality, and lack of empathy. You're telling me there's a gene for this now, right? I mean, you're making stuff up at this point. You could have, all this is behavioral. You can change this thing with teachings, with upbringing. That's why I'm telling you, Jabriya. We have in Islam Jabriya in our history. A group of people, very small group of people in Baghdad. When they're included in every theology book, you think they're like thousands and legions. No, it's like 5 people who ever put forth the idea that everything is written in destiny and you have no choice, right? It was like 3-4 philosophers who were astray who said this, and the ulama shut it down. And then common people try to say it every once in a while. 1 out of 100 people will try to justify his bad behavior by saying, I was forced into it. So they looked at it theologically. Here, the only difference, they look at it genetically. Okay, show me a gene that has this, and then we could talk. So now she started saying eventually, after she discovered it was a name, she desired to destigmatize, her experience. Destigmatize. Instead of saying that, yeah, I have bad akhlaq and I have a nafs, no, let's destigmatize this so that we can openly say that we have these thoughts. She's not saying to do it, but she's saying it's okay to have these thoughts. Okay. So Gagne worked as a therapist. She shouldn't work as a therapist. She needs a therapist to those with the disorder, and has also written about sociopathy. And this put Gagne on a path that led to Sociopath, her book. I'm not trying to say sometimes we do bad things, but we're really sweet on the inside. She's not even saying that. She's saying sometimes we do bad things and we're not sweet on the inside. We're remorseless. She's saying this, right? I'm saying there is more to this personality type. When I hear the word sociopath, I think of an antisocial, uncaring person who is interested in only in satisfying his or her desire. What is a clear picture? Sociopathy is a perilous mental disorder. The traits associated with sociopathy aren't great, but that only tells part of the story. The part that's missing is you can be a sociopath and have a healthy relationship. What, really? Please disclose that before we get involved. You can be a sociopath and be educated. That's a very uncomfortable reality for some people. People want to believe that all sociopaths are monsters and that all monsters are easy to spot. In the book, you write about stabbing a classmate. I guess this is the question. In the New York Times article here, the bold is the question. In the book, you write about stabbing a classmate with a pencil when you were a kid. And then you, as you got older, you trespassed. And then you stole cars. You don't succumb to those sociopathic compulsions anymore. How did you learn to control these urges? All right, I think the guy's talking some sense, because it's like you have an urge, you learn to control yourself. And nafs ammara bisu. They have no concept of this. They want to make the nafs a glorified thing that we sympathize with and accept everything that it brings. She says, as a kid, I didn't understand why I was acting out the way that I was. All I knew was I felt pleasure. And something in my brain was telling me, punch that kid. Is it your brain or your nafs? Watch how many words now in our culture can be replaced between whatever the word they use and the word nafs. That's how we would understand it. Yeah, you have nafs ammara bisu, the nafs that commands to evil. All right, so she says, my brain was telling me to do this, and I'd feel better. As I got older, I understood, okay, there's a name for this. And there's a whole group of people who share this diagnosis. That word diagnosis is so overused. Once I understood that I wasn't in space untethered and going crazy, I was on the path to understanding that when I had those feelings of go steal a car, I could go, yes, I could go do that, but now I understand what's going on. That understanding helped break the cycle, or at least redirect the compulsion towards something less destructive. All right, at least I think she's trying to find a way out of it, but her classification of these whispers, that ideas that get in her head, are not right. The classification is not that you're just born this way. The classification, you could say, is just, well, they're not going to believe our classification, which is there is something called Iblis, and there's something called the nafs. And nafs, the ego of the human being, has a bad side to it. And if you feed that bad side, it grows and it dominates over you. So he says, what does that redirecting look like in practice? Every once in a while, I will have an urge to do something destructive just because I can. And my redirect is, do you want this destructive behavior? Or do you want to continue to maintain this life that you have, which requires that you not do those things? I have to have that conversation within myself. Okay, I have to say that's slightly more sensible, right? It's her. This is the atheist version of dealing with my nafs, essentially. So instead of saying it's a nafs, they're saying this is something that you're born with. Instead of putting it as the construction that Allah told us about, they're just putting it as genetics. But the problem with it is that, like, she wants people to open up. Like, let's open up about your destructive thoughts. We actually say that actually will probably increase them, maybe make it worse. Like, right? And it makes it normalized. Now, for us, probably I would say there's a 50-50. On one hand, you don't want to normalize those things. On the other hand, there is a healing element to when you admit you have a problem. But to whom are you admitting it? And are you making it an identity now? Publish an article for the whole world to know. Like, we can understand that someone says, listen, I got a problem. Let me go seek help from a person who can help me. And that person, you could tell him your problem. But now you don't go and say, make it an identity now. Hey, guys, I'm a nafs ammara, right? Right? I'm a nafs ammara. And I need you to understand that and recognize that. That's not how it works, right? So what's a recent sociopathic impulse that you had? Bro, only a white woman can get away with talking like this, right? What's a recent sociopathic impulse that you had to a Palestinian man, right? A black man. That's not a question that's ever going to pass, right? But a white woman, right? And you look at her picture here, like a very petite-looking white woman. Yeah, she could say, I stabbed, I stole, and she gets a New York Times article written, right? Unbelievable. This is a very vanilla example. When I go to the grocery store and I come home, if anything that I purchase has gone bad, I'll make a mental note. I'm stealing this next time. Tell me if a black dude, said this, what are people going to say? You tell me there's not a double standard. You write about your difficulty with understanding other people's emotions, feeling apathy and lacking empathy. But you also write about experiencing love. Why are you innately able to feel love but not empathy? Good question. The way I experience love seems to be very different from the so-called neurotypical experience, normal people, neurotypical, okay? She says, my experience of love seems less emotional. If I had to explain, how is love less emotion? It's 100% an emotion. If I had to explain what love feels like to me, I would say symbiotic. So a relationship that's beneficial to both people involved. Wow, how wonderful of a human being this is, right? She says, it's not transactional nor possessive nor ego-driven. It's mutual homeostasis. So like a virus, right? Or a leech on a fish. Then there's a leech hooks on the fish. The leech sucks out the bad blood and eats, so the fish benefits. Or the bird that takes the food out of the alligator's mouth. Have you all seen that? So the bird eats, but the alligator gets his teeth cleaned. That's where we're going here. It's not that I'm unable to access emotions or empathy. It's that my experience of those emotions is different. Such a load of nonsense. When you write about becoming a mom, oh man, she shouldn't be. Don't be a mom, please. Don't abuse the kid. You say that profound feelings of love toward your child were non-intrinsic and you had to work to experience them. Can you tell me about that? Listen, hey, if you have a kid and you have to work on loving your kid and you're the mom, not the dad, right? A dad, I could see he can sense responsibility towards his kid, right? Like there's a kid in the world, I got to make sure he turns out right. That dominates over love for the kid. And you know that love for the kid might actually cause me to sacrifice this. I can love a kid so much that I let him get away with a lot of bad habits. And this continues over the span of 18, 19 years. It's too late. You got a rotten, spoiled kid who can't benefit himself and everyone hates him. So I can see many dads stifle or push aside or subdue their emotional side for the love of their kid in order to set him right. Because otherwise he gets away with murder. Okay? But when you're saying as a mom that you need to work on loving your kid, something's terribly wrong, right? As a woman, forget my personality type. You're inundated with all these images. Child is born. It's incredible. I did not experience any of that. I didn't have the immediate baby is born. I'm overwhelmed with love. It was, I don't know this person. This person's very loud. Something is seriously wrong. Why are we putting these people on a pedestal with a book and a New York Times article here, right? Interview. Are we accepting this? That's where this society, if someone wanted to destroy the American society, you'd elevate these types of people. Give them a New York Times cover. Look at she's on the cover, right? With a big, picture of her. Why are you putting this stuff out there? Like what she has to say is important. This person is ill. The only thing that she said right was that she has an illness. Now stop talking. Get treated. Instead of you talking about your own illness and philosophizing about it, why don't you actually have real psychiatrists who actually know something to treat you? Problem is all those psychiatrists are ill too. Now she says, it was like, I don't know this person. They're very loud. That connection just isn't there. It's not innate. But over time, you can build it. Much like when I first met David, I knew right away that this person was going to be important in my life, but I didn't have those sweeping, romantic, flowery emotions affiliated with that experience. Same thing when I met my son. Met my son? What are you talking about? You don't meet a baby that was in your stomach. All right? Are you able to describe how you've built a sense of morality? You know, if I'm the interviewer, when she answers like that, I pack up the interview and I leave. I might get killed at the end of this. The interviewer says, are you able to describe how you built a sense of morality? She says, just because I don't care about someone else's pain, so to speak, doesn't mean I want to cause more of it. Okay? I enjoy living in this society. I understand that there are rules. Is she playing games with us? Is she playing the role No one can actually be like this, right? If you are, you shouldn't be talking. You should probably be getting treated at some center. Or you need to find religion or something to treat you. Go live on a farm with animals. Maybe you absorb some nature, right? And after 10 years, you'll be better. I choose to follow the rules because I understand that it benefits the world. This house where I get to live, this relationship I get to have, that is different from people who follow the rules because they have to, they should. They want to be a good person. None of those apply to me. I want to live in a world where things function properly. If I create messes, my life will become messy. I think people are uncomfortable with the idea of you don't really care. Okay, they're not comfortable with that. I don't care. What does it matter? What does it matter why I choose to help the woman cross the street? Why does it matter why I choose to pick up a wallet? I think she's playing dumb and she's playing everybody with these ideas. It's not because I'm a good person. It's not because I would feel shame or guilt. But what does it matter? This person, you know, what they really should do is they should be in the Hall of Fame alongside Friedrich Nietzsche, right? The nihilistic Hall of Fame is where they belong. Nothing has any meaning. Okay. What advice do you have for the neurotypical people, normal people, about how best to interact with someone who identifies as a sociopath? See, I don't get this. If it's a sickness, why are you identifying with it? Like, for example, when you get the flu, you don't say, hey, I'm not going to shake your hand today because I identify as having the flu, right? I'm going to stay away from you today because I identify as having COVID, right? You just say, I got COVID, I'm sorry, right? Sometimes people, when they get old, they start forgetting things, and they tell people, don't mind me, I'm getting old, I'm starting to forget things, right? A little bit of dementia is setting in. And they'll say it when it's like 10%, because they know now that they may offend people if they don't remember their name or whatever, okay? I remember a person asking me if I knew my wife, right? Like, you know her? And I'm like, you know, for 20 years we've been married, right? So it was such a weird moment at that point. And he caught himself. So sometimes people catch themselves even with mental sicknesses, okay? The onset of it is not taken over yet, so they recognize it. But nobody goes around saying, hey, I identify as being an AIDS patient. I identify as a Alzheimer patient. You just have it. You identify with something that is purely a choice, right? You identify as a Republican, as a Democrat, as a Christian, as a Muslim. You identify that. You don't identify as being Italian, right? You are Italian. Whether you like it or not, you're Italian. Nobody identifies with these types of things when they're born into you. Okay? Ryan, do you identify with being Irish, being Italian? I mean, you just are that, right? Yeah, I don't identify as having black hair. You just have it. So what you choose is what you identify. So this is where words now start to have no meaning. And if words have no meaning, and words and meanings are what produce like laws and society. So now it says, I have been identifying as a sociopath, she says, for years now. What, does she have a flag too? Is there now going to be a flag that we all have to support? And my experience with people who don't know that has been positive. I have yet to encounter anybody who, when I disclose my diagnosis, acts afraid or upset. Yeah, because if they act differently, they might get stabbed. I think inherently neurotypicals are fascinated by sociopathy because it's a relatable disorder. No, it's not, sister. It is not relatable at all. No one has a baby and then says, nice to meet you. I don't know you. Let's get to know each other. Everybody has darkness in them. Everybody has those thoughts that they shoo away because of guilt. If more conversations between neurotypical and so-called neurodivergence were to occur, it would benefit both. It would benefit the sociopathic person because the acceptance lets 80% of the air out of the balloon. But it would help the neurotypicals, like, oh, I can share things with this person and maybe I couldn't share with other people. Oh, so now we benefit from the sociopaths now. I get it, what she's saying. Now we're the ones who have the honor to be able to talk to sociopaths. What a flipped world, honestly. All right. I get more secrets from strangers after telling them my diagnosis. You wouldn't believe things people have told me because they feel safe. Yeah, because if you talk, no one believes you. That's why. You're nuts. I'm sorry to say this. So they could tell you stuff because if you spill the beans, right? If you spill the beans, no one's going to know. Oh, she's crazy. What secrets do they tell you? Oh, man, I was sitting across from a man at a dinner party. This was like 2 years ago. My diagnosis came up after 30 seconds. He said, I have thoughts of killing my wife a lot. What is the New York Times publishing here? Are you serious? Not to normalize that, but I was like, tell me about that. And he goes, I've really thought about it. I've reached out to people about hiring somebody to kill her. Tell me anybody except this character of a person could write this article and say this stuff without the whole society, jumping on them and calling them some kind of a criminal. So people just assume that you're a sympathetic audience. All right. She says, yeah, because these are things you're not supposed to think about. So to be able to talk to somebody, you don't have to worry that I'm going to start clutching my pearls. You were a practicing therapist, and we think therapists as highly empathetic, invested in the emotions and stories of their clients. So how did you relate to your clients? I didn't relate to them, she says. Now, that is not to say I didn't care about my patients. The easy answer is, of course, I care about you. All right. I thought she said she doesn't feel emotions. I wouldn't continue to see you if I didn't. But why do you need that reassurance from me? My job is to help understand what's going on with you. My job is to help you take your emotions, separate them out, explore your motivations. That's my job. I think upon reading this, the judge should take her kid away. She's not fit. Okay. My gift to my therapy patients was that I was able to lend them sociopathy. Why do you care? What does it matter? What do you need from that? I help them achieve things maybe that non-sociopathic therapists couldn't have offered. So again, the sociopath now is someone that we have to be honored to be in their presence. Maybe they should be they'll be great therapists too. But really normal people, okay, they're just boring laymen unable to achieve anything. Essentially is what her attitude is. This is just an arrogant person who really needs help and should not be on a pedestal talking, having therapy, or having kids. In the book, you describe things like mirroring people back to themselves or your conscious and intentional manipulation in the moment. Is that happening now? Listen, everyone has a front-facing persona. Most people use that persona as a preference, a desire to be liked, a fear of judgment, wanting somebody to be friends with them. But sociopaths use it out of necessity, and that's a really important distinction. What does she mean sociopaths use it as a necessity? Did she go and poll people who also, quote unquote, identify as sociopaths? She's full of it, to be honest with you. And she's just created herself a new distinction, a new group, a new little badge. They'll have a flag, though you'll be allies soon, right? And that's a really important distinction. My decision to mask is not because I have some dark ulterior motive. It's because you guys are interesting to me. So now the normal person is a subject of investigation. Neurotypical emotions are so colorful and complex. In order for me to engage with you, you have to feel comfortable with me. Lady, nobody wants to engage with you. In order for you to feel comfortable with me, I have to mask. I find that people are unnerved by me when I'm not masking, because otherwise I'm quiet. I ask invasive questions. I stare. My effect is low. The bottom line is that I want you to feel comfortable. I'm not reading the rest of this.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Maybe transition or something.
Yeah.
But it's from the Burda. Like, because this Nafs has like many different, it's like a there's so many sides to a prism, basically.
Yeah.
And if you stop one way from the Nafs, it's like the other way starts to get you.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Burda he says, this translation, in the second chapter, who can hold back my headstrong soul from its error of its ways, just as wild horses are restrained with bridles and reins. Do not aim to break the desires by plunging further into sin. The glutton's greed is only increased by the sight of food. The self is like an infant. If you neglect its proper care, it will grow up still loving to suckle. But once you wean it, it will be weaned. So dismiss its passions. Beware of letting them take over. For when passion gets the upper hand, it will either kill or bring dishonor.
Mm-hmm.
Keep a watchful eye on it as it grazes in the field of actions. And if it finds the pasture too delightful, do not let it graze unchecked.
Mm.
How often a pleasure that is in fact deadly has seemed good. The one who does not know there may be poison in the fat. Beware the snares of hunger and satiety, for an empty stomach may be worse than overeating. And then there's like, dry the tears from eyes that have had their fill of forbidden things, and henceforth let your only diet be regret. And then it keeps going, but it's like even he mentions in this is balance.
Yeah.
It's like don't feed the soul, but then also don't deprive it.
Yeah. You can't go to excesses on either side, or else you're going to flip. Something bad's going to happen to you.
So it says here,
Yeah.
just the definition of sociopath says it's an antisocial personality disorder.
Yeah.
So a mental health disorder characterized by disregard for other people. Those with antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, may begin to show symptoms in childhood, but the condition can be diagnosed until adolescence or adulthood. There's 200,000 cases in the US. I think a lot of this stuff also came out of COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because people were by themselves, they didn't know what to do with themselves.
But
Right.
why do they have to make these things disorders? Why aren't they simply behaviors that simple, basic upbringing of your brother, your sister, your dad, your mom, your aunt, your uncle can fix? It's like that's how the rest of the world used to operate, right? And still operates till today. This is upbringing.
But it's the erosion of the family.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you take that stuff away, there's no one to do the upbringing anymore.
Like
So
having grandparents around, how much barakah do you have?
Yeah.
Like having grandparents or like siblings or aunts and uncles.
there's also tons of proof that your wiring in your brain is altered by your behavior, right? So your behavior can alter wiring in the brain. You can't then come and do a brain scan of the person and says, oh, the wiring is there, that's why the behavior. No, it's the opposite way around, right? Your behavior starts and kicks off the wiring of your brain. Here is, if we answer the... Okay, we'll take Wandering Mind. We'll take your questions as soon as we get to Q&A. I want to read see what some of the comments are. Do you guys want to read the rest of the article? Or have you had enough of this person? I can't keep the sohbah of these types of people for long. How can you give moral and financial support to people who are starving? Like the kids in Gaza. Unless you're a sociopath. Right? Yeah. Yeah, let me read these comments real quick, but you can load them up. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we need to get that 90,000. You reminded me. Thank you. We have to hit 90,000. No other number is acceptable. All right. Here, Joyce Hill says a very good question. I wish the interviewer had explored Gagne's relationship with her parents. How did they deal with raising her, right? Did she have siblings? How were those relationships? Thank you. That's common sense right there. How was this person raised? Right? What were your parents like? All right. The interviewer mentioned you were practicing therapy in the past tense. Really curious to know why she isn't practicing now. Okay. Maybe something happened. She reminds me of a therapist I had a long time ago. Colder and more impassive the longer she saw me, as if comfortable unmasking her true self, or maybe she became lazy about pretending to care. She once asked me, matter-of-factly, couldn't you just break up with your father like you would a boyfriend? Needless to say, that was the last session. Okay? It's good to see commonsensical people here in the comments section. It's a bit refreshing. I don't know what the New York Times is even doing publishing this garbage. There's people in everyday life who are like this, not just in high position. Okay? Recognize them so you can protect yourself. Oh, man. We have a lady like that in our pickleball group. She lies, she cheats, she's mean for no reason. All right, she enjoys winning points. Okay, even though we're playing for fun. When people first play with her, they're upset by her rudeness. Then they get wise and they ignore her. Okay, best to avoid these types of people, just like this author. All right, so commonsensical people here. I worked for several years with an extremely bright individual who demonstrated traits of a sociopath that brought so much stress to our lives. Even after this person left the practice, it affected me so much that I literally suffered feelings of post-traumatic stress and anxiety that required therapy just being around such a person. Okay. So there you have it. Let's just do a random comment. All right, here is Steve from California. It's simple. To glorify, support, and spread sociopathic behavior is wrong. Lack of conscience, empathy, and sympathy doesn't make one admirable or admirable or even interesting, except as a scientific research project aimed at preventing it in the future. That's the best comment right here. Let's recommend that comment there. Boom. Okay. Oh, I have to log in to do that. No, thank you. But you see, isn't that what we just said? Like, why are we glorifying this? This person, someone who's ill. And then she's one of these like megalomaniac types where she puts it that you are all honored, right? You could learn something from you. People always want to learn something, to tell me their secrets, right? And I find you people so interesting. This person is a egomaniac too. I'm curious how she was diagnosed, unless I missed it. The interview doesn't touch on that at all. Did she self-diagnose herself? That's a good question, right? Did she self-diagnose? I'm telling you, she's playing games. She self-diagnosed to create a nice new diagnosis for myself, right? And it's a diagnosis today is like Gucci. It's like Cartier. It's like a designer's thing to have a diagnosis.
But also
it's like a fashionable thing.
It's a paycheck for.
It's a paycheck. Thank you very much.
Pharmaceutical companies.
SubhanAllah, when this was first read to me, what I said is, where's the end of the thing? Where's the end of this going? Some pills, right? Let's see who's behind. What do you have there? Hat. What do you got here? Kit Kat. Who wants the Kit Kat? Cheetos. Jalapeno. Oh, here we go with this generation and the flaming hot. Give me the regular flavored stuff. Everything has to be flaming hot with you guys. Cheetos, flaming hot. Get it out of here. Okay? Cheetos, again, jalapeno. Get it out of here. All right? Why is it with this generation everything has to be flaming hot? Everything is flaming hot. Just give us the regular stuff as it's flavored. All right, give me back the Kit Kat. Here, Brian, you take that. Adi? I mean, where'd you get this, by the way? Where'd you get all this stuff? Omar, you get flaming hot. Is it because we're in Edison, we're in Central Jersey, and there's a lot of Indians that everything has to be flaming hot? Or is it the whole country's now like this? I try to get regular flavored stuff. I can't anymore. Everything has to be spicy this and flaming hot. Eat up, gentlemen. Good old, yes. Good old Kit Kats.
So, as you guys know the protocol. Partnered up with GRT, alhamdulillah, for Gaza. Support the people in Gaza. So, let's just see the update. I mean, you guys already know the drill, so. We get 89.3.
89.3. Come on, we got to get to that 90K. We have to get to that 90K.
That's it, 90K, inshallah.
Yeah.
You guys got to run those numbers up.
Mm-hmm.
It's for a good cause.
Yep.
We always update you guys with pictures. Unfortunately, I don't have anything for today. Any updates, picture-wise or video-wise?
We'll get to 90K. Susan says, I'm confused as to the difference between a selfish person pursuing only their interests and a sociopath. What is the difference? Is a narcissistic and selfish person necessarily a sociopath? Or is the key lack of empathy? So another commonsensical person talking. Diane from Portland, Oregon, child psychiatrist here. This is a very worrisome article to me. Who exactly diagnosed Patrice Gagne? I'm telling you, she diagnosed herself with a designer sickness, okay? And now she's doing a media tour with it. And behind her, we're going to find out the pharmaceutical companies are there, right? You pop pills. And the pharmaceutical companies are going to be, all right, in bed with all these identities. Make it an identity, make it cool, make it hip. Pop pills, get a prescription. Is that not where most of these things are? The trans thing. Who's the biggest person to push the trans thing? The pharmaceutical companies, right? The insurance companies are paying tons of money for this now, right? So make it cool, make it hip, all right? Make kids want to say it, make it a hashtag on TikTok, okay? She says now, all right, who exactly diagnosed Patrice Gagne with having a very serious mental health illness and antisocial personality disorder? Was that assessment comprehensive, and did it also include reviewing symptoms of perhaps autism, right, which also features reliance on logic over emotion? And did she receive mental health? What kind? Where did she receive her PhD? How are you all that and getting a PhD? I feel there is much more to this story than what was told. Thank you. Common sense here. I would not myself want to receive mental health treatment from a self-identified sociopath, nor encourage anyone else to. I wonder, too, if being a sociopath and following ethical guidelines from her earned PhD, assuming she is certified, might be in conflict. She got a PhD on the subject and claims to be that, too. Okay. All right. There's something else we have to read here. We're moving on to Israel. Anyone want to say something about this before we wrap up? New York Times today. Can you put the cover for this? Because it's a really good cover. Yeah. The article is called Israel is Losing Its Greatest Asset, Acceptance. This is Affairs of the Ummah today. I haven't done Affairs of the Ummah in ages. And at one point it was like every day was Israel-Palestine. I've spent the past few days traveling from New Delhi to Dubai and Amman, and I have an urgent message to President Biden and the Israeli people. I am seeing the increasingly rapid erosion of Israel's standing among friendly nations. Yeah, and put the where it says losing its acceptance. Put the whole, share the whole internet, web, whatever. All right. A level of acceptance and legitimacy that was painstakingly built up over decades. And if Biden is not careful, America's global standing will plummet right along with Israel's. I don't think Israelis or the Biden administration fully appreciate the rage that is bubbling up around the world, fueled by social media and TV footage. We just saw Alan Bushnell, his name is, right? Alan Bushnell. We're going to read about him, his biography. He lit himself on fire as a pro-Palestine, protest. All right. I don't think Israelis they fully appreciate that the rage that is bubbling around the world. So many thousands of Palestinian civilians, particularly children, with U.S. supplied weapons have been killed. Hamas has much to answer for in triggering this human tragedy, but Israel and the U.S. are seen as driving events now and getting most of the blame. That such anger is boiling over in the Arab world is obvious, but I heard it over and over again in conversations in India during the past week from friends, business leaders, an official, a journalist, youth, elderly. That is even more telling because the Hindu-dominated government of Modi is the only major power in the global south that has supported Israel through and through and consistently blamed Hamas. By the way, what Hamas did is actually lawful according to the UN. If you're an apartheid, you're allowed to fight back. So according to the UN, I'm not making a judgment because you know that can get you in trouble in the United States if you support Hamas. So we're not doing that. But I'm telling you, according to the UN, if you are a country or a people who are being treated the way the Palestinians are in Gaza, it is lawful for you to fight back. You could look that up. Okay. Actually, you know what? Zabe, why don't you look that up? You're a college student. You know how to do research, right? Apartheid, UN laws, apartheid is allowed to fight back. Look it up. Okay. They're angry in India at the death of 30,000 people. Okay? In India, a country where their government is totally pro-Israel. That many civilian deaths in such a relatively short war would be problematic in any context. But when so many of them are civilians, okay, launched by an invasion launched by Israeli government without any political horizon for the morning after, and then when the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu finally offers a morning after plan that essentially says to the world that Israel now intends to occupy Gaza, it's no surprise that Israel's friends will edge away and the Biden team will start to look hapless. Shekhar Gupta, the veteran editor of the Indian newspaper The Print, put it to me. There is enormous love and admiration for Israel and India, but a war with no end will strain it. Initial shock and awe apart, Netanyahu's war is damaging Israel's greatest asset. The widely held belief in the invincibility of its army, the infallibility of its intelligence service, and the justness of its mission. Each day brings new calls from Israel to be banned from international academic, artistic, athletic competitions. That is, so much of it is hypocritical in singling out Israel for censure while ignoring the excesses of Iran, Russia, Syria, and China, not to mention Hamas, is true. Well, there is no such thing as a Hamas academic, representation. But anyway, this Israeli government is doing things that make it too easy. Many of Israel's friends are now just praying for ceasefire. Now, here's the thing. It's one thing to be at war, like Russia and Ukraine. But when Russia was beating up on Ukraine, you didn't see pictures every single day of a kid with no hands, a girl with her face half burned off. But you see 3-4 a day when it comes to Israel. I think that's the big difference. This is not a normal war. Countries are at war all the time. This is not normal. Your behavior is not normal here. So they're praying for a ceasefire so they don't have to be asked by their citizens or voters, and especially the youth, how they can be so indifferent to the mounting civilian casualties in Gaza. In particular, many Arab leaders who privately want to see Hamas destroyed, who understand what a warped and destructive force it is, are being pressured from the streets through the elites to publicly distance themselves from Israel. Netanyahu put it in the morning after plan he issued last Friday. Israel will keep security control over Gaza. The territory will be demilitarized. The Strip's, is dehumanized now. You've blown the bits out of everybody. The Strip's southern border with Egypt will be sealed. Okay. Civil administration and day-to-day policing will be based on local elements with administrative management experience. Who will pay for all this? Where will the Palestinians go? I have real sympathy for the strategic dilemma that Israel faced on October 7th, a surprise attack on Hamas that was designed to make Israel crazy by murdering parents in front of their children in front of their parents, allegedly, sexually abusing and mutilating women, allegedly. And we know there's no proof. There's always like a claim that we saw the pictures. Show us the pictures. Kidnapping infants and grandparents. It felt, for me at least, the world was ready initially to accept that there were going to be significant civilian casualties if Israel was going to root out Hamas and recover its hostages, because Hamas had embedded itself in tunnels, under homes, in hospitals, in mosques, in schools, etc. Okay, but now we have a toxic combination of thousands of civilian casualties and a peace plan that promises endless occupation. No matter if the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank transform itself into a legitimate governing body, to be a partner. That doesn't make a difference, he says. So the whole Israel-Gaza operation is starting to look more and more like a human meat grinder whose only goal is to reduce the population so that Israel can control it more easily. So there you go. You had it. Any Arab would be telling you this, months ago, that was the goal, to just kill all these people so you can take over. You're just saying now that it looks like that? Wake up. People have been saying this for months now. Netanyahu refuses to even consider trying to nurture a new relationship with non-Hamas Palestinians. These people are messed up. It has nothing. You could talk about Hamas all you want. People don't see Hamas. They just see Palestinians. And the Palestinian people, it's not like Hamas and non-Hamas. So as if the non-Hamas people will now have any different views than Hamas. They hate you equally. Right? You can eliminate Hamas. You're not eliminating the feelings that these kids have that their lives have been destroyed. Netanyahu refuses to even consider trying to nurture these relationships. It would risk his chair as prime minister, which depends on backing from the hard right, Jewish supremacist parties, who will never cede an inch of the West Bank. Hard to believe Netanyahu is ready to sacrifice Israel's hard-won international legitimacy for personal political needs. And he will not hesitate to take Biden down with him. Keep in mind that the moment he's out of power, he goes straight to jail, Netanyahu, because of issues he has with the law there in Israel. So he's got to stay in power too. But the broader point is that unique opportunity to permanently diminish Hamas, not only as an army but also as a political movement, is being squandered because he refuses to encourage any prospect, however long-term, of building toward a two-state solution. It's so naive. No one cares about Hamas. The Palestinians will not be like, oh, you're only anti-Hamas? No, they don't view it like that. You are anti-Palestinian. You're trying to kill Palestinians. You're not trying to kill Hamas. Maybe in political circles, Hamas is the key word. But other than that, you're not changing the feelings of people by saying, no, we only are against Hamas. We can deal with anybody else. All right, that's pretty much the end of the article. Let's see what the comments say. 1,907 comments. Genocide of civilians happening in front of our eyes, and this so-called civilized Western society is watching it helplessly. This is Peter from LA, Los Angeles. Okay, Biden administration on the one hand saying that innocents are being killed, and on the other hand saying innocents are, other hand supplying all the bombs to kill. It's pure evil and hypocrisy. All right, let's go to random comments here. Harriet from New York. It's so true. The world is watching in horror. People here too are fed up. Okay, who once were sympathetic to Israel. It's not just the left protesting. People in general are shocked by this behavior. Okay, it's going to be like Vietnam for Biden. Netanyahu talks about a protracted war. Okay, on many fronts. Nobody wants this except Israel. All right. Random comment. Here's Patrick from Dallas. Great article. Things with right-wing solutions is that they convince us that it's possible to delegitimize the opponent. So Israel right-wingers led by Bibi have convinced the majority of Israelis that it's possible to warehouse Palestinians indefinitely, subjugate them, dehumanize them. This guy is from Texas saying this. Okay. They killed Palestinians indiscriminately because they want to punish them. They've reduced the population already by 5%, but they've destroyed homes 80%. Okay. This is not a recipe for progress. This is genocide. All right. Let's take another scroll down and take a random comment. The random comment gives you an idea of what people are thinking, how they're reacting. Okay. Megan from Texas. Even my own very Christian mother is torn about voting for Biden again after witnessing this genocide. We're seeing images of dead children. Almost all the hospitals are destroyed. This is not just a reaction. Schools are bombed. Kids are dead. Teachers are dead. We heard the voice of a 7-year-old Himdi as she slowly died after. All right. Also shot ambulance drivers were shot by snipers following their agreement that they could go save Hindi. There's been a lot of brutality. Okay. So, all right, here's Catherine from Houston, Texas. I'm interested to see what these Southerners have to say because, they tend to be part of these mega churches which are very pro-Israel Zionist. Negotiations to end warfare will stall and drag out endlessly, and 1,000 more Israelis will die, okay, unless our military support for Israel's genocide ceases. Unless the U.S. military stops enabling this, the genocide will continue. All right. Let's go to Nevada. Propaganda is effective. Even Friedman is falling for it. Israel has no choice but to dismantle Hamas to the greatest extent possible by eliminating Hamas military infrastructure. Until that is accomplished, talking about Palestinian state is just smoke. Okay, so. All right. That's enough reading. What else we got, Ahmed? Anything else, or are we going straight to the discussion and the Q&A right now? Ryan, what do you have to say?
Not much.
Ahmed, what do you have to say?
We didn't talk about Aaron Bushnell, did we?
Huh? Oh, yes. Get his biography up. Huh? Zeb, did you get us our answer? Huh?
There was just a lot about the South Africa apartheid convention. There was no laws saying you can fight back. They're just every single article just talking about how apartheid is evil. They just say the law and the rules. Nothing like they can fight back.
We'll have to look for that.
I've seen some rumors. I haven't confirmed any of it, but that apparently Aaron Bushnell had private information on what the U.S. was doing in Israel. So he had some of the secrets with their involvement, according to one of his friends.
Did he release that?
You know that guy on Twitter, Layman, Ahmed? He posts all this stuff. He's one of the main news sources. I think he posted something about it.
Yesterday we commented briefly about Aaron Bushnell and how he his protests / suicide, or if he attempted, maybe, I don't know if he attempted or he knew that this was going to end in death or wanted it to end in death. All that he said was that he's going to light himself on fire. Okay. And I guess you assume that you're going to end up dead when that happens, but We can't say that for sure that he knew. Maybe he thought he'll get attention and people will, hose him down. So let's read this. Omar is telling us here that the New York Post reports, New York Post, is not exactly the best, but let's see what they say here. That he told a friend of his that he had secret information of U.S. troops fighting in tunnels under Gaza, just hours before setting himself on fire, stressing that he would no longer be complicit in genocide. Okay. On Sunday afternoon, he did this, and then Monday morning, we all saw the news. He then stood before the embassy gates, the Israeli embassy, and he said, "Free Palestine," in a horrific protest against the Israel-Hamas war. Bushnell is only 25 years old. U.S. Air Force, stationed at the Lackland base in San Antonio. He's originally from Massachusetts, Whitman, Mass. He joined the Air Force as an active duty member, and has since worked in information in IT and development. Okay. He was trying to get out of it into software engineering. Bushnell grew up in a religious group on Cape Cod called the Community of Jesus, whose former members have come forward alleging abuse and a rigid social structure. According to a family friend and the former Community of Jesus member, he was raised in a religious compound in Orleans associated with the group. The friend told, that's Orleans by itself, not New Orleans. A friend told the Post that young people in the Community of Jesus often join the military, moving from one high control group to another high control group. Friends who spoke with the Post say that while Bushnell was stationed in San Antonio, he was attending events for a socialist organization and delivered food to people on the street. Friends state that his contract with the military was to expire in May, and he was looking for a career transition. Okay. On Sunday, hours before he went to the Israeli embassy, Bushnell texted a friend who shared the message with the Post. So this is the second article. So the Twitter piece, and then this is citing the New York Post. So apparently some friend of his contacted the New York Post, and for the first time in history, perhaps, the New York Post finds itself on the cutting edge of journalism, having a story before anybody else does. Because if you don't know about the New York Post here, it's basically just a tabloid. They just take the information from wherever source and make a exciting article about it. Okay. So the message says, "I hope you'll understand. I love you," Bushnell wrote. "This doesn't even make sense, but I feel like I'm going to miss you." Weeks earlier, Bushnell talked on the phone with the same friend about their shared identities as anarchists and what kinds of risks and sacrifice were needed to be effective. A friend, we're not going to stand by that, but his pro-Palestine was aligned with us. A friend who spoke to the New York Post states that Bushnell spoke to him on the phone and said he had top security clearance and that he was distressed by what was happening in Gaza. "He told me on Saturday that we have troops in those tunnels. Okay, that it's U.S. soldiers participating in the killings," the friend said. "There's too many things I don't know, but I can tell you that the tone of his voice just had something in it that told me he was scared." Okay. While the U.S. has special ops in Israel to reportedly identify American hostages, the Biden administration has stated that there will be no American soldiers in Gaza. All right, the self-immolation at the embassy. Hours before lighting himself on fire, Bushnell posted a Twitch link on his Facebook with the caption, "Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery, or the Jim Crow South, or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is, you're doing it right now." That's a good way to introspect about those things. Shortly before 1 p.m. on Sunday, Bushnell began his live stream and walked toward the Israeli embassy with an insulated water bottle full of flammable fluid. "I will no longer be complicit in genocide," he said in his video. "I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal." Bushnell then placed his phone on the ground and walked to the gates of the embassy where he doused himself in liquid from the bottle. Free Palestine, he said, as he struggled to light himself. Because you see the thing didn't work the first few times because he was holding it upside down, I guess, or I don't know what. Or right side up, didn't work. A law enforcement officer approached asking, "Can I help you, sir?" At this point, Bushnell lit himself on fire and screamed, "Free Palestine." As Bushnell screamed in pain, a law enforcement officer off camera yells at him, "Get on the ground." A second yells, "I don't need guns, I need fire extinguishers." Did you see that idiot with the gun? Israeli embassy. Didn't I tell you the other day? They stab and kill and claim to be the victim. Here a guy is burning on the ground and you're worried about him and you got your gun pointed to him. That guy is one of the dumbest people I've ever seen. Okay. "I don't need guns," another yelled at him. "I need fire extinguishers." The aftermath of Bushnell's death, an incident report filed by a Secret Service agent states that they received a distress call regarding an individual exhibiting signs of mental distress outside the Israeli embassy. Before the Secret Service, there's another failure from the Israeli Secret Service here, right? Before the Secret Service officers could engage, Bushnell doused himself with an unidentified liquid and set himself on fire. I think we all know what the unidentified liquid was, right? The Secret Service officers promptly intervened, extinguishing the flames before the arrival of the fire department. He was subsequently transported to a local hospital, but due to burns sustained from the incident, Bushnell was pronounced dead at 10:06 p.m. on Sunday. So he actually lived for 10 hours. He lived for 9 hours after that. So it was 1 o'clock to 10 o'clock. That's 9 hours. In the hours before his death, he emailed several left-leaning websites alerting them to his highly disturbing final act. "Today I'm planning to engage in an extreme act of protest against the genocide of the Palestinian people." He read the email, which was forwarded to the BBC. Bushnell's video was taken down by Twitch for violating terms of service, though edited versions blurring out his burning fire are circulating on social media. The Secret Service, I'm assuming it's not the Israeli Secret Service, it's the American Secret Service that protects these embassies. And the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms are investigating the incident, along with the Metropolitan Police of Washington, D.C. Prior to his death, he emailed several left-leaning websites that he was planning to engage in an extreme act, to protest against the genocide in Palestine. His act was not the first self-immolation in apparent protest of the Israel-Hamas war. In December, a woman lit herself on fire in front of the Israeli consulate in Atlanta. We didn't hear about that. In what police described as an act of extreme political protest over the war. But she survived, sustaining third-degree burns over her entire body, was hospitalized in critical condition. Her identity has not been released by police. A 61-year-old veteran Army veteran, who worked as a security guard at the consulate, suffered severe burns when he attempted to save the woman. Okay, since the Vietnam War, self-immolation has been a dramatic but rare act of protest, in the U.S. I wonder if there are going to be copycats. What do you think? Think people are going to copycat this?
There's that one monk, I think, in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Remember that when he burned himself for protest of the war?
Back in the day? Yeah. I mean, he was probably the first one to do it. All right, let's go to the Q&A now. Shay Ajib. All right, you could give us our ocean retina. Give Dr. Harris some love. Okay. Pro West reminds us that the Arab Spring started with the same type of act in Tunisia. Okay. There is an uncensored version of a video, Mass W says, but I wouldn't recommend watching it, he says. I saw shocking comments on Bushnell from apparent Muslims, dua for his maghfirah, calling him a martyr, unreal. I mean, some of the left-wing socialist agenda crosses paths with the Muslim political positions, Israel being the number one point, because their anti-colonialist stance, right? They're against colonization, and they view this as colonization. So you do find a lot of the socialist left-wing types are fully in support of Palestine, and they're there at all the marches and everything. So obviously our foundations are totally different. Amixa says, now open QA, any subject, anything goes, Instagram, YouTube, okay? Kit Kat is Nestle, and Nestle supports Israel, so respectfully stop eating the Kit Kats. That's about these Kit Kats, okay? So I'm sure Zabe didn't know. I'm surprised how the Indian media has been much more critical of Israel than the Arab media. Even Hindustan Times and the WION are critical. Okay. Escape Dunya. Respectfully, what is your biggest objection with Salafiyya? It's not our objection. It's where that manhaj parts with, let's say, the other manhaj, which is basically in considering. We have a Salafi right here. How do we have issues with Salafis? We got one right. I got one. Ali says he's not quite, but he's lived amongst them. He knows their ins and outs. But the point is that it's one thing to have an opinion on a matter of dispute. It's another thing to say this is the only opinion and none of these other opinions matter. Not only that, they're all misguidance.
That's why I say not quite. I'm not with the dogma.
So he's not with that part of it. So it's one thing to say I have certain opinions. It's another thing to say all those madhabs and all those ash'aris and all those maturidis, they're complete innovators. You can say I disagree and I feel that conclusion is erroneous, even if you can say that in itself is an innovation. That doesn't make the whole person an innovator, because if you come up with an answer to a new question and we disagree on what the answer is, clearly there is no discussion on it in the past. We're bringing a new question and we're answering it differently. I could say I believe you're totally wrong about that. Okay? That doesn't mean I hold you to be an innovator out of Ahl Sunnah. Your deeds don't count. We don't want to pray behind you. We don't want to marry you. We don't want to be your friend anymore. That's how you treat an innovator. We're not marrying you. We're not praying behind you. We're not hanging out with you. We're not going to your masajid. It's a complete cut. The same way as Sunni and Shia is like a complete gulf between the two. That is the example of the innovator again and the Sunni, right? So that's the example of that. Now you don't coming and treat. All right, our biggest sources, Al-Qurtubi, An-Nawawi, Ibn Hajar. Are you going to treat them as innovators because you disagree with their opinion on things?
But that's the thing. Salafis accept those guys.
Yeah, they accept them. But they won't accept their followers or anyone who says what they say. How does this make any sense? So it's that extreme of tabdi' that is a problem. Forget that we're not even going to discuss the masail. We could discuss the masail, but we're not even going to. Just start off with that. Right, so just that is the main issue.
There's a good book on this called Mafhum al-Bid'ah by I forget the name, Dr. Abdul Ilah Hassan something, I forget his name, Hussein. He has a whole chart on like the opinions of the Salafi Aimma, so like Albani's Fatawa and then Ibn Baz and all of them, and how they have completely differing opinions. So
they're different amongst themselves, very different.
Was that if you so his point is basically if you're saying that difference of opinion is a bid'ah and this is the only correct opinion, then according to your own manhaj, all of your shuyukh are innovators according to each other. Yeah. So why do you make that distinction there, but not for the madhab?
Thank you very much. They have so many distinct aqaid, beliefs in Aqeedah. Complete polar opposites. Right? Okay, here's another question from Amixa. My husband pays zakah every year on my gold jewelry. Hanafi fiqh, do they have to pay zakah on gold jewelry? Okay. But in the Maliki school, Shafi'i school, there's no zakat on jewelry. Jewelry, even if you don't wear it, but it's a necklace, right? And you've had it sitting for 40 years in your drawer. I know. You do not have to pay zakat on that. Okay? But anyway, let's see what she says here. My husband pays zakah every year on my gold jewelry, but for the past 2 years, due to unstable income and debt, he is unable to pay zakat on my gold. So do I have to sell my jewelry to pay zakat on it? No, sister. There's no zakat on jewelry. take that opinion. Okay. Do you have to pay zakat multiple times on the same gold? If you have gold bullion, if you have a hill of gold bullion, let's say you have, I don't know, give me a number that people might have. If they have bullion, you know, the bricks. If you have that, every year that you have it, lunar year, that it's sitting there doing nothing, you pay zakat on it. That's why it's better to invest your money. Okay. So Lily Rose is correct that the ruling for jewelry regarding zakat is different from investment. You just want to invest, no problem. Then you're going to pay zakat on that. So gold bullion, even if you buy jewelry with the intent that it's investment, you don't pay zakat on it because you could wear it too, right? Now, I don't think anyone does that because you're paying too much now, right? You're paying for the gold and the labor. Is gold ring considered saved wealth? A gold ring is jewelry, no zakat on it for a woman. Okay. If a man owns a gold ring, it's wealth because he's not allowed to wear it. It's not jewelry for him. For some reason, a man inherits from his dad gold, right? Let's say your dad was a Hindu and he had tons of gold because, you know, they wear a lot of gold, the men too. So you took that from him now, or whatever, he gave it to you as a gift. That's for you wealth. Unless it's jewelry that could suit a woman, then you can give it to your wife, and then it's jewelry. Okay? Now, what is the relationship between zakah and debt? The answer is, you calculate all that you owe in zakah, and then you calculate all that you owe in debt, and you subtract the debt from the zakah, and then you pay on what's remaining. So let's say my zakatable amount, that zakah that I owe is $20,000. I owe $20,000 of zakah. But my debt is $15,000. So how much zakah do I owe on now? I owe zakah on $5,000. Okay? Or $5,000 of zakah. So I was going to pay $20,000, but said, hold on, I forgot to subtract my debts. Okay? Now I subtract my debt. Now I pay on the rest. Some of the scholars now ask the question, all debt or just what is due of the debt? And for that, the Maliki answer is all debt. So you have a debt on $500,000 left paying off your house, then it's $500,000 of debt, right? Because if you can't pay, what's going to be against you? 500,000. But some of the ulama said at that point, no one would ever pay zakah. So what they said is you would take off the monthly debt. So I got a monthly car payment coming up. I got a monthly house payment coming up. I got a monthly this. Same thing with a store. I have all the inventory. I take the value of that inventory, 2.5% of the inventory. But then I also I pay rent, I pay electricity, utility bills, I have salary, subtract that from that, and you have what remains. Okay. Same thing. Some people, they run a business, but they have, they rent machines. You can subtract 1 month, that monthly payment. Okay. That's how people doing it. Can I buy a house with a mortgage? No, you should use one of the Shari contracts, and I know a lot of people whine and complain about those Shari contracts, but at least on the face of it, it's a valid contract, and that's what matters. That's what Allah is going to ask us about. Rapid fire. And guys, interrupt me if you want to say something. Okay. Can the subject of the increasing rate of Muslim men and women with narcissistic personality disorder, okay, so many victims of this kind of abuse, this is bad tarbiyah in the households. Parents got to raise their kids to be not selfish. Amixa, last discussion on Abu Talib accepting Islam. What about the incident where on Fatih Mecca, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said he would have been happier if the Prophet's uncle accepted than his dad? That's correct. There's another one that says Sayyidina Ali refused to pray on his dad. Right? Prophet ﷺ said, bury his dad. He said, bury your father. He said, no, he's a mushrik, I'm not touching him. He said, bury him. So we learn fiqh from this, actually. When your non-Muslim parent dies, you bury them. You don't do all the rituals of ghusl and all that, but you would just wrap them in anything and bury them in the Christian graveyard. That's what you would do. if your mom dies outside of Islam. So all those are the arguments about Abu Talib dying outside of Islam. And Allah knows best. Perhaps the Prophet ﷺ left it to appear that way because there weren't really two witnesses or even one witness for his shahada, except they say it was Al-Abbas. Right? They say Al-Abbas witnessed it. So you end up with both sides of the discussion. Go ahead.
What do you think about like the opinion that this is not really a make or break belief that you need to have, so it's safer to believe what's good from it? Or
Yeah, you whichever belief you die upon, but then how do you handle the evidences?
yeah, it's true. I just know, like, you know,
Yeah.
there's arguments from both sides. I feel like it's not. I'm not gonna be asked about this.
Yeah.
specifically.
This is not a mas'ala of aqeedah that we're going to be asked about. What's that?
I found that chart, the Bidah chart
The chart of what?
for the Salafi.
Oh, you found the chart saying, holding what their different beliefs are?
He laid it out pretty well.
What does it say here?
Like he has all that down, like the different masail here, and then which of the Salafi shuyukh say it's a Bidah and then allow it.
There are even masail in Aqeedah where one of them, I think the Fawzan,
It's crazy. 'cause
I don't
most
want
of
to,
it's fiqh.
huh?
It's most of it's just fiqh.
And that's fiqh, but go to the Aqeedah part. One of them said on the issue of there are 7 who are in the shade of Allah on the Day of Judgment. So the one scholar said clearly it is the shade that Allah creates on the Day of Judgment, right? Shade that He creates, and only people that He permits enter that shade. And anyone who thinks other than that is a donkey. Then they brought his colleague, right, who was actually older than him, previous mufti, before him, quoting and saying, no, Allah has a shade that befits His Majesty, a shade from Himself, the shade of Himself, His shade, right? Like this is my shade right now, cover my shade on the table. So, and they're like colleagues. One of them said he's a donkey who says this. That's like a very simple Aqeedah question, right? So they have differences amongst themselves. So why should they be so shocked when someone differs with their usul?
They don't really know how to differentiate between fiqh and aqeedah. Like it's very
That's another problem too. Yeah, it's another issue too. They also don't have they throw out the phrase mubtada and mushrik so easily. Like, what is the actual line?
It's the students among them. It's not so much their scholars.
Yeah. But then again, when you have like 100% correlation of all the students, then it's got to go back to the scholars eventually too, right? Can the subject... All right, let's talk about this next question here.
So Dr. Shadi, my wife's becoming Maliki after that.
After the gold, mashallah. Maliki in gold. Yep, in jewelry. All right. Muhammad says the Hanafi position is that nisab of gold is 87.5 grams. 87.5 grams. You know what we would say?
It's really on jewelry though. The Hanafis.
Hanafis? Yeah, I believe I heard that before. Yeah, I remember Kari actually being surprised when I said there's no zakat on jewelry. He said, teach people correctly. I said, that's what's correct. Did we answer the mortgage question? Yes. Is it a sin to keep the awrah uncovered unnecessarily while alone? Yes, this is not, we cannot say it's sinful, but it's not from the muru'ah and it's not from the sunnah to, let's say you're home alone in the house, you have malaika with you. So you should cover your awrah. I would say we can say that it's makruh. I can't say we're sinful. Someone to walk around nude,
The Shafi'is specify
sinfulness,
being alone in your house.
permissible,
For
sinful.
men, it's the Salat-tul, and then for women, I believe it's
The shoulders down.
from what's it called? Rukbah.
From the shoulders to the knee.
No, from the surah.
Okay, from the belly button to the knee. But walking around nude in the house, this is makruh or sinful?
I think makruh.
Makruh, yeah. Sinful from the Hanafi school? Based on what? What's the... Do you know the proof? It's sinful. You shouldn't walk around nude in your home. Selling insurance, unlawful. How could you say that your friends sell insurance? My friends do unlawful things. What can I tell you? I like them. They're my friends, but their job is unlawful. I'm sorry to tell you that. Okay. Oh, but you take insurance. Yes, we may have to take something as a rukhsa, as a fatwa. Okay. Right? Not even as a fatwa, as a darura, I'm sorry. That's better to put it. As a darura. That doesn't mean we can sell. You cannot sell what can be taken as a darura. I can eat pork as a darura if there was a situation like that. If I'm in jail and they deprive me of food, may Allah protect everyone from going to jail, okay, for 30 days, and then they're messing with your head and they say, okay, let's give him pork and wine and beer, right? As a Muslim, if you choose to avoid it and die, you can do that. But if you also choose to eat it and live, there's no sin against you. To eat pork ribs, right? And drink beer. To live, because they're torturing you, they're starving you. But now, does that mean I'm now allowed to go and sell beer and pork? Of course not. So likewise, darura, entering into the insurance contract, which is a money for money contract and an unknown for an unknown. So I know what I'm paying, but I don't know what I'm getting back. I may get nothing back. Every good driver gets nothing back. You know what? You're probably better off every once in a while financially, mathematically I'm saying, is to have certain accidents. I'll tell you why. Certain fender benders will require the entire fender to be fixed, including the little scuff marks that were not accidents, like little bumps that you're not going to report to the insurance. Then one day someone bashes the back of your car, you get the whole thing replaced. Car looks a lot better, right? So at least you got something for all the insurance payment. You pay $300 a month, $200 a month to Geico, and you're a good driver. Shouldn't you get rewarded for this? No, you get punished. You lose all your money. But when a guy gets hit once in the back of his fender, he reports that to the insurance, he gets himself a new fender, and his insurance may not even go up, by the way. If someone hits you, that guy's insurance pays, right? And if it's nature, then your insurance will pay. Let's say it's a tree falls on the back of my car. My insurance doesn't go up, right? But I get a new fender. Even if the entire hood and the glass, a tree falls it during a storm, my insurance doesn't go up because I didn't do anything wrong. And I get a whole new window and a whole new, okay. All right, so that's why insurance is an unlawful contract for us, and it's not permitted for a Muslim to sell it or be a salesman for it. Okay. How to become present in dhikr is to remember the one whom you are remembering. Okay. To be present in dhikr is to remember the one whom you remember. In the beginning, you focus on the words you're reciting. In the end, after that, you remember the one whom you're remembering. So it begins with the action first, and then you elevate in your consciousness to the one whom you are remembering. Okay? Okay. Do we do Salat-ul-Ibrahimiyyah in the Nafila? Yes, you do. Really, any Salat on the Prophet, but Salat-ul-Ibrahimiyyah being the best.
Someone asked me one time, I didn't know the answer. Why is it specified saying that Ibrahim and that Salah? Like, what's the wisdom?
The beginning and the end. The first prophet after the flood, the last prophet after the flood. Ibrahim and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah. And so Ali Ibrahim, everyone who supports Ibrahim, from Muhammad up, from Prophet Isa up to Ibrahim, they're all Ali Ibrahim. And from all the Salihin afterwards, from our time to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's Ali Muhammad. Because Imam Malik specified that Ali Muhammad, Ali Ibrahim is everyone who loves and supports them. So that means all the mu'mineen from the time of Ibrahim until the time of Muhammad, when we say Ali Ibrahim, and then from when we say Ali Muhammad, all the mu'mineen from our time until the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that yashmal jami' al-mu'mineen, making hallmarking the prophets as like the main posts in our history. Does a layman make a judgment on which is the correct aqeedah? The layman's ijtihad of the layman is which scholar is most worthy to follow. So you should study the works of the great scholars and see which is most worthy to follow. Which scholar seems to you like he knows the most, I mean. And you got to keep in mind, if I say, for example, my choice is Imam Shafi'i. All right, there are masail now that didn't exist in the time of Shafi'i. So I have to go down the line in history and I have to make another choice too on the new matters. Then I got to go down in today's matters. Like, for example, even if I said Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, even if I said Imam al-Suyuti, who came in around the year 1000, that doesn't answer me questions on Bitcoin, on cryptocurrency, right? On IVF. So everyone who is a student of knowledge must ask themselves, who is the mufti alive today that is most worthy of following? So you're going to have scholars in each of the major tranches of Islamic history that you deem most worthy of following, that will help you answer those questions that didn't come in the time of the previous scholar. See? Everyone says, okay, I live and die by Imam Malik. No, you don't. No, you don't, right? There are thousands of masail that never came in the time of Imam Malik, in Mukhtasar Khalil probably, right? Which is halfway through the history. And there are hundreds of questions now that you live with every single day that you need a fatwa on. So you could say, yes, hit Malik and the Malikiyah thereafter. But in each period of time, you're going to need to pick a mufti. You're going to need to pick a scholar that you say he is the most worthy of following. So in the middle period, I'm going to say, all right, Khalil is most worthy of following. In the last period, I'm going to say, whoever is, then I'm going to say Sawi after whatever. I'm going to keep pointing until I come today and I say, yes, today, if I have a fatwa, I go to Sheikh so-and-so, right, for the fatwa. Or you can have multiple, because not every mufti is going to answer every question or be accessible to you to answer every question, or have a website where I can research all his fatwa. So you may have a list of muftis that you access. Ahmed, Ali, how's it going? Talk to me. MashaAllah, you finished an exam finally, fully?
No, not fully. It's just like one after another. It's just, it keeps going. That's all it is.
Man, how much medicine do people have to take?
No. It's the funny thing is that I finished, was on the live stream. I finished my psych lecture and it was like hearing about your conversation.
Yeah.
No, these drugs are terrible.
The stuff is sick. Yeah. The stuff is, it's. I think they got it down to a formula.
Yeah.
Popular identity movement. Leads to pill popping.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and all these medications actually increase like suicide.
Totally.
Thoughts. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I identify as a sociopath. Give it a month. Yeah. You're gonna see a nice, colorful purple plum commercial on TV, right? Do you identify as a sociopath, right? And then you have a woman riding a bike. These corny and lame pharmaceutical commercials, and then the pill comes out, right? Right. Ever since I've been taking these pills, right, I can control my sociopathy, right? I'm telling you, it's gonna end up in taking a pill. It must. This stuff is economics. It does. You don't land on the New York Times, except that some advertisers got you there.
Yeah, no. The big pharmaceutical companies, they're in hella debt because of it takes like $2 billion to just.
Totally.
So they'll do anything to make it pass, forge data and stuff like that.
They have to. They have to. They have to. Indian ulama, Imam Rabbani used to discover tombs of Indian prophets. Why American ulama haven't found out American or Canadian prophet tombs? Well, Turquoise, you're saying this, Imam Rabbani used to discover tombs of Indian prophets as if that has rendered it a qat'i fact. It's not a qat'i fact. That may be his Mukaashifa. Okay. That's a kasr from him. And it's not a qat'i fact, with all due respect to scholars. But the Mukaashifat, that so-and-so buried here was a prophet from way back in the past. That's vanni. Inferential. It's from him, maybe from a Mukaashifa, or it's an inferential knowledge. It's not definitive knowledge. Okay. And so I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes and says, "Oh, I discovered a Native American so-and-so chief was a prophet a long time ago, way before the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Oh, khalas, it means nothing to us. It's just let's say I had a dream, I had a Mukaashifa. You're not going to discover prophethood by digging up artifacts. It's going to be by Mukaashifa, right? What other aspect of or channel of knowledge is there? Okay, so your Mukaashifa does not mean anything to anybody else except the people who believe you, right? And Mukaashifa is like any other thing that you see with your eyes, you could have seen wrong, right? You could be the most honest person in the world with 20/20 vision and still see wrong. Okay, or you can have a bad memory. Okay, so Ali, downstairs in the main room, you been there?
Yeah.
How many tables are there? See, you don't know. Same thing. He has perfect eyesight, perfect memory, and he's been in the room downstairs many times. He can't tell you how many tables there are, right? It's just not one of the things you remember. Likewise, a dream from a wali or something can be 100% wali, 100% honest, but it just doesn't have the recall, right? That's it. So, what's the difference between Firasa and Mukaashifa and Ilhaam? Okay. Well, I'll answer you this question. Firasa has to do with detecting the precursors of an effect. Okay? That's Firasa. The precursor of an effect. There are signs for something to happen. Everything that happens, there are signs before it. Okay? That's and then the more subtle you know the signs, the stronger the Firasa. So, if a guy comes, Imran comes and talks with a British accent, and we say, you're British, that's not Firasa, right? Because that is jelly. It's jelly. But if I detect a little hint of an accent within an accent, and I say, are you from this neighborhood of England? Right? He said, how do you know that? Now, because now that is a sign that is khafi. Firasa is the detection of indicators that are khafi, that 95% of the population won't see. There are signs that 95% of the people won't see. So Firasa, for example, is like Sherlock Holmes when he says, I saw under your nails, little green. That means you were scratching something green, right? That's Firasa, is like a very subtle hints. Now the Firasa of the awliya and the mu'mineen is even deeper. They see the signs of Allah's actions. And we gave examples of those. When Allah wills an action that is blessed, or when He wills the punishment, there are little subtle signs there, and they know those signs. And we talked about this in the hadith of Taraddud before. So that is the element of Firasa. Mukaashifa is without any of these signs and is just a dream that Allah puts in the heart of the wali. Okay, that's Mukaashifa. A vision that Allah puts in. And Ilham, I think you could say, is synonymous, for our purposes right now, synonymous to Mukaashifa. And can we ask Allah for these things? These things you don't have to ask for them. You avoid sins and do a lot of remembrance of Allah. And if you avoid sins for 70 days and 70 nights, and you are very sincere in your ibadah, and you do tahajjud and you fast, and you do a lot of remembrance, then these things happen by themselves. Imam al-Haddad says it's almost like cause and effect. These things always follow. In the same way, he says it's no different than drinking water and feeling quenched. Okay. Where can I get mental and emotional help from an Islamically knowledgeable person, says Izzy. In a few months, we're going to be launching our program for this, just for this. Non-religious life help from an Islamic perspective. That means we get someone to help you walk through your tribulations of life, be it in marriage. Ahmed Adi, you're going to be a life coach? No. All right. You're going to be able to prescribe?
No, I can't prescribe.
You can't prescribe at all? Yeah, but you could sneak out some Viagra or whatever, right? Okay. So Ahmed Adi coming in a Mercedes, he's selling stuff on the side, right? Okay. Ahmed Adi what is this, a 10-year pharmaceutical program? It seems like you've been in this program forever.
It's almost done.
How many years is it?
So this is the last semester of didactics, and then one more year of
every year he tells me, oh, well, one more year. Last year of this and one more year of that, right? My gosh.
I'm ready to check out.
how long is this program? And after all that, you're going to sit in a little room smaller than this studio for 8 hours at Walgreens giving strangers medication. I hope they give you a lot of money. I mean, it's like being in a jail.
Honestly, it is.
I look back at the CVS and the Walgreens. It's a little thing this big, right? This big. The area, and it's all rows and people bumping into each other, fulfilling orders.
Shay, this is a good question.
Read it to me.
What are the subtle signs that Allah intends goodness or punishment?
Son of Zeitgeist says, what are the subtle signs that Allah intends goodness or punishment? If Allah inspires you to tawbah, He wills good for you. If He inspires you to seek knowledge, He seeks good for you. If you find yourself taking sins lightly, then He wills to punish you. It's not He wills to punish you. You're bringing it upon yourself.
It's all about how you respond. That determines,
It's how you respond to the tribulations. Okay? Huh?
Is there a limit in the Maliki Madhab for how much gold jewelry is exempt from Zakah?
No, all of gold jewelry is exempt with no limit. You can have, for example, let's say 1,000 grams of jewelry, right? And you're exempt from all of it. Okay?
Whether you wear it or you don't. Whether you wear it or you don't. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter whether you wear it or not. No. It's that it could be worn. Okay. Where was the question there? There was a starred question, Zabe. Did you see that? There was a brother who asked a question that, you know, those starred question, this new thing that YouTube has? Okay. Mixing and matching madhabs is blameworthy. Would it be blameworthy, and what would be the Shara'i ruling? It's not blameworthy as the acts of ibadah are valid. If the whole act of ibadah is done per one school of thought, it is valid. And you then go and you make your own mix and match. So on money matters, I'm Hanafi. On food, I'm Maliki. On socks, I'm Hanbali. Okay? And so on and so forth. All right? Everything you're doing is valid, but this is not a methodology of the ulama. Why? Because you're putting your nafs as the decision maker. The methodology of you will not find me one righteous wali of Allah, scholar, alim, who acts upon his knowledge, imam who acts upon this, who does that. Why? The more rational, correct way, sincere way is to ask yourself which scholar is most worthy of following, and I follow him. Not what is best for my nafs. Okay? No, that's not how you do it. So you're valid but blameworthy. There is something called valid but blameworthy. If a Muslim comes and says to me, listen, I'm going to pray 5 salah every day. I'm not going to miss a single one. Okay? And I'll throw in witr. 1 rak'ah, not 2 and 1, just 1. Okay? And I'm going to fast, and I'm not going to commit any sins. And he says, is this ibadah valid? He says, it's valid. But it's blameworthy to purposely avoid doing nawafil. Right? He's telling you, I'm not doing any more. That's blameworthy. But your ibadah is valid. No one can blame your salah as being invalid. You a fasiq. No one will say you're a fasiq. Okay?
I mentioned in one of the Shafi books, a very big book, about the Qawaid of taking from other Madhab, when it's allowed and when it's not, and like they differentiate between ahkam for yourself and then for public use.
Correct. The muftis, however, for the public use, the regular guy comes in and asks you a question, you give him the easiest opinion. Or what you believe suits him. Sometimes he's someone, the easiest opinion doesn't suit him. Sometimes this is someone who actually needs to learn, to put some effort in the deen. Right? And that if he continues down this route, there's no effort, there's no resistance. Okay? So sometimes you need some resistance. And you're allowed to switch with another madhab on a matter which is difficult for you to do. Like we do that in food matters. Our big shuyukh do that in the Maliki school on the najasa of alcohol. There's little alcohol traces of different types of alcohol in every food, like vanilla extract. Can't do this. Half of all of buyur. Every chapter there's going to be something in which you rely on the Hanafi school, right? A contract with an invalid clause you can take that in the Hanafi school and act up, but as long as you don't act upon that one clause. Maliki and Shafi'i, so the whole contract's invalid. In that case, No one will ever have a credit card. If you don't have a credit card, you may not have credit ratings. You might not be able to rent a car, for example. So these are masail that come up that the Hanafi school, it's almost like it grew in a culture mixed with Muslims and non-Muslims. So it renders it mimics our culture. So we benefit from that. Likewise, i'anatul ma'siyah is a mas'ala that I think that Omar talked about yesterday. They're more lax on that. So if you're working at ShopRite and every 1 out of 100 items that being checked in is an unlawful item, it's not something you have to quit your job. By the way, I just said 1 out of 100. They didn't say. They said the general store is a halal product. They sell halal products, halal business. But 1 or 2 things, couple things here and there, they didn't say a number or a percentage, is unlawful. He said, yeah, you could work there, even if it ends up being So, for example, flight attendants then at that point, right? By Hanafi rules, if you're going to serve 95% of the time, you're serving the regular people. And every once in a while, someone says, I need to go and order a wine, right? And then you bring it to them. According to what they said, it's not my saying, don't quote me for saying that. It's what the Ahnaf said, that you're lawful. It's lawful for you to do that. Don't quote me on that. That's quote the Hanafi school on that. And they have ikhtilaf within the school, by the way. But just to tell you and to point you in that direction if you need to know about it. Egyptian secularists got rid of Mursi. It was a form of mass self-immolation, washing away the sacrifices made in Egypt. Okay, this is on self-immolation, the destroying yourself. And they were making like an analogy there. Glass Angel says, there are some groups I know personally who practice the Mawlid and believe the soul of the Prophet ﷺ visits Mawlid gatherings. What is the correct view of this issue? We just say what the Prophet ﷺ says. When we say as-salah and salam on the Prophet, he returns the salah and salam. Okay? Whether you want to say he returns it now, he returns it every Thursday night, doesn't make a difference. You should know for sure when you utter salah and salam on Sayyid al-Kawnayn, he responds back. Intahat al-masala. That's all you need to worry about. And is it lawful for you to specify one day for the gathering for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Okay. And they say, well, the Prophet never did this, so are we allowed to do this? Okay, hold on a second. Hubba. See, even the mic doesn't like these fatwa, right? Okay. So the same are we allowed to schedule days is what you're asking. Am I allowed to schedule repeatedly, annually, every year I'm going to do something on a certain day? Are you telling me that that's not lawful? Because hold up, because all school starts in the same month, all taxation happens in the same month, all your scheduling of your life happens in the same month. Don't go out for anniversary then, because that's happening every day. Do your anniversary on any day. Go tell your wife that, right? No, from now on, we're not doing the anniversary on June 1st, the day we got married. We're going to do any other day except June 1st. Go and ask any rational, logical person, what did the Prophet ﷺ say about Ashura? Ashura, he asked, why are the Jews fasting on this day? They said Moses was saved on this day. Okay? So he did link an act of worship to a good day, an event that Allah was blessed us in that day. How about fasting? The man said, oh, Masrullah, should I fast on a Monday? He said, I was born on a Monday. So to link a happening in life with an action that we're going to do annually or weekly, because Ashura is annually and Monday is weekly, or fasting is weekly. The Prophet himself did it. So number one, I ask you to then bring me a proof that I cannot schedule something annually. If you do bring me such a proof, then apply it to yourself on every other act of ibadah. So every hifz school, every Dar Ulum, do not tell me you're having graduation on June. Do not tell me you're having your recitation days on whatever. Okay? And then let's go to the week. Don't then schedule anything weekly either. All right. Number three, we said the Prophet ﷺ himself did it. The Prophet himself scheduled his fast on Monday because he was born on a Monday. He scheduled then the fasting of Ashura because on that day. He didn't say, let's honor Musa, yes, and let's be thankful to Allah that he saved Musa alayhi salam, but let's pick any other day except the day that Allah chose. How does this make any sense? Okay, so Adi speaketh. Anything?
There's a bunch I can say, but I'm just taking it in right now.
Okay. Any subject. Doesn't have to be this subject.
So, I'm just thinking about the self-immolation. So if sociopathy is the lack of empathy, then what do you call that? What's the opposite then?
Yeah.
Extreme concern to the point you burn yourself.
I have a question. That's a great point. Why do the sociopaths why don't they damage themselves? Why are they improving their life? Getting a PhD, writing a book. That's why I really like that comment from California. The lady says, what is the difference between a sociopath and just a selfish person? Right? Because it seems to be you just don't care about others. But you seem to really care about yourself. You go all dressed up in New York Times and get a PhD and create a whole ideology behind your whims and your desires and your perceived feelings about yourself.
Isn't that just arrogance?
It's just arrogance and selfishness. So if you're truly sociopathic, you also would harm yourself too, right? Otherwise, it's just purely selfishness. Ryan, speak it. Sayyid al-Kawnayn alayhi salatu wassalam said, O merchants, selling can involve false oaths and idle talk. So mix some charity with it. Can you explain this? Yes. The answer to this comes in another hadith. The hidden charity is in buying and selling and forgiving debts. So what does that mean? It means that if a guy comes to you with a deal and you know that this person is a genuine and good vendor. So charity is in letting him have a little bit more of the profit rather than skimming him to the bone so that he can only profit, a 2% margin or a 3% margin that becomes pointless for him, right? So that's where now then there's a man with a debt. He's late on the debt. All right, that's okay. He's late. He paid you a little less. You don't give him a hard time. You may ask him, but you don't give him the hard time. So in ease in the relationship of buying and selling, that's what the Prophet ﷺ said. The hidden charity is in buying and selling. Okay. Are premium bonds allowed? No. The bond is a ribawi transaction. Okay. You're buying something and you're guaranteed back a certain amount. Okay. Is there a different definition from the premium bonds? Let's look that up.
Premium bond is more like a UK-based type thing.
Premium bonds. It says here they are different. It says they don't earn interest. Instead, there's an annual prize fund rate that funds a monthly prize draw for tax-free prizes. No, I'll read about this later. I'll read about it later. Yeah, I have to get a good tasawwur of the mas'ala and ask around and make sure that I answer you properly. As for regular bonds, I could tell you that because we went over that mas'ala many times. That mas'ala. Okay. What is the extent one has to go investigate whether a Muslim shop sells halal meat if the owner is apparently a Muslim in front of you and he tells you this meat is halal and you look around you and seems to be that the community accepts him? That's enough. Can a house purchased through installments still being paid for be rented out? Yes, you can, because once you purchased it, you are the owner of the house, right? Now you're just paying it off. So you can rent it out, of course. Sultan Mir, thank you very much for your comment. Anything from Instagram? Nothing, as we wrap up here. Permissibility of working for insurance? Yes, we answered that. It's not permissible to buy and sell something that is allowed for us to take as a darura. It's allowed for us to use insurance. We have to. State requires from us to have certain insurance. And it's a darura. For health insurance is a darura, no doubt. Most people will not have $30,000 to have a kid. On the spot, you got to pay the hospital throughout the 9 months, I should say, that you would pay that much money, right, to have a kid. Most people don't have that amount of money. Some people do. But nonetheless, other sicknesses, the medicines could cost $4,000 a month. We know people that their medicinal receipt every month. Their medicine that they take is like $6,000 a month because they have diseases, right? Who has that amount of money? So that's a darura at that point.
How much does health insurance cost monthly?
You can get health insurance for like $200 a month. Yeah, you can get, but you have to get it from that Obama. What do they call it? Yeah.
You have to save that money you would be giving them instead. You would have to save it for 15 years to have it get.
Exactly. Yes, speak.
There's a question that says, are Sayyids forbidden from the hellfire?
No, there's nothing that says that. We ask Allah Ta'ala for that, for the Qurrat Ayn of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but that's not an Aqeedah point. It's different that we say, we pray that Allah Ta'ala guards all the family of the Prophet for the sake of the Prophet. We know Sayyid al-Kawnayn loves his family like anybody else, right? You don't want your family to go to the hellfire. So why are you so bold with Ahlul Bayt? The Prophet's family, even if it's 1,000 years later, the Sayyid al-Kawnayn still loves his family. The Prophet still loves his family, as you would too. Okay? So we had hoped that they not enter Jahannam, but there is no Aqeedah point that says that the fire is forbidden on the family of the Prophet. No, we have no Aqeedah point like that, but we hope that it is. We hope that they're forgiven, those who have done wrong amongst them.
Salafis are of the understanding that the mother and the father of the Prophet ﷺ in the fire.
Based upon what? He asked to make dua for them and he was told no?
Well, yeah, in particular, that's in the case of his mother.
Yeah.
He was prohibited from making dua for her. In the case of his father, one of the companions, he was concerned about his father's fate in the hereafter. And he was distressed that
He said, Abi wa abuka finnar. Okay, let me answer both of them. So the first one, the mother of the Prophet ﷺ, to say that she's in the hellfire because he asked to make dua for her and he was told no. The answer is this. There's a category of people who never received the message. They are, by fiqh, by sharia, mulhaq bil kuffar hukuman shar'an. In our law, they are treated as kuffar, but the message never reached them. And hence they are people of paradise. Because we say, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. This is the Aqeedah, right? Of the Asha'ira and the Maturidiyya and many of the Hanabila. We don't punish until you get the message. So she didn't get the message, obviously, right? There's no message at that time, right? So she didn't get the message. So they must be treated as kuffar. Mulhaq bil kuffar. Meaning what? Meaning when I go to Native American, they never heard about Islam, right? Can I go now and make dua at his grave? I can't. Okay. If a person comes to me and brings me a person and tells me they never heard about Islam, I said to her on her deathbed, have you ever heard anything called Islam, Allah, Muhammad? She said, no, I'd never heard of that. And before I could speak another word, she died. So we say she is min ahl al-fatra. She never heard the message. She goes to Jannah. But we bury her in the non-Muslim graveyard. By law, she's not a Muslim, but with Allah, she's forgiven. Goes to paradise. Okay, that's number one. Number two, and then you can reply. The father, the Prophet ﷺ, a man came and said, where my father died as a mushrik, and he's in the hellfire. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Abi wa abuka finnar. My your is in the hellfire. But Allah clearly states in the Quran, Abaika Ibrahim wa Ismail wa Ishaq. Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam, Ma ta'buduna min ba'di? He says, oh, my son, Jacob, on his deathbed. He says, my sons, who do you worship after me? They said, قالوا نعبد إلهك. We worship your God. Wa ilaha abaik. Your fathers. Ibrahim, Ismail, and Ishaq. Hence, the Quran itself tells us that the word ab can refer to the dad, the uncle, the grandfather, anyone who raised you is your ab. So when the Prophet says, Abi wa abuka finnar, it does not necessitate his biological father. He didn't say, Walidi wa waliduk finnar. My biological father, your biological father is in the hellfire. He said, no, my dad. The dad could be anybody who raised you, or your uncle, or your grandfather. So in this case, it's Abu Lahab. Clearly Abu Lahab, right? At least we know that for sure. Okay, because he's the uncle of the Prophet. All right, so therefore we cannot say with any jazm, nobody can say with jazm we can say that is an incorrect statement, and we can say that his mother and his father are forgiven because they never received the message. They're not even forgiven. They're not even accountable in that sense because they never received the message. So therefore, they're from Ahl al-Jannah. There's stronger proof for that.
Right.
What do you?
With that explanation, I can see why, why the Sunnis, followers of the Madhab, will be inclined towards that position. I can also see why the Salafis would be inclined towards their position.
Why would that? And let me tell you something else. Yeah.
Just because they cut and dry literal.
But the cut and dry literal, the Quran says, we do not punish someone unless they get a message, neither in dunya or akhirah.
Now, remember we had this discussion before about the hadith. You said it was graded Hassan. I know it to be Sahih. At least Sheikh Albani deemed it Sahih. That four will protest on the day of judgment before Allah Azza wa Jal. They will be told to willfully enter the fire, and if they do so,
okay. So that hadith isn't he's saying there's a hadith that they'll be tested on the day of judgment, right? Yeah. So even if we say they'll be tested, how do we know that they won't pass the test? Right. That's number one.
Yeah. So
that's number one. So we don't know that they're not going to pass the test. Right. Number two, that is an ahad hadith, and I'm giving you a Quranic verse. Which one is heavier? Right?
The grading's the issue because according to Salafis, that's a sahih.
Sahih, but it's ahad. It's not a mutawatir hadith. So it's a ahad hadith in matters of aqeedah will not override a mutawatir verse of Quran or provide an exception.
Even then, I don't see that to be a direct conflict with the ayat of the Quran because Allah says He doesn't punish until He sends a warner.
But He also says that the dunya is the abode of tests, not the akhirah. So that also is another issue that hadith has to go through, right? The dunya is the abode of testing. The akhirah is an abode of jaza, right? So it's not the abode of testing. There's no more testing in the akhirah, okay? So when we have a verse and a hadith like that, we don't say the hadith, we throw it or we discard it. We suspend it. We say it's there, but the Quranic text is heavier, and that's what our aqeedah is, right? Now, let me tell you something else. Even if you were to believe that they're in the fire, it's forbidden to say it. Why is it forbidden to say it? Did not the Prophet ﷺ say, Ikrimah is coming, stop talking ill of Abu Jahl? And that's what all of Abu Jahl did. So who's going to be more sensitive about his parents? Ikrimah, to the open enemy of Islam, Abu Jahl, or the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to his parents who never even did anything wrong? So even if you were to you were to read in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, they're in Jahannam, you can't say it. Okay? Because it would injure the Prophet. Inna dhalika kana yu'dhi nabi. Quran says. This used to harm the Prophet, peace be upon him. فَيَسْتَحْيِي مِنْكُمْ. What used to harm the Prophet, peace be upon him? Delaying his time that he has with his wife. You're staying too long in his house, and the Prophet already, how much time does he have in the first place, right? But he would be ashamed to tell his Sahaba to leave. And the Prophet is so busy, right? And his wife needs him. And he says that used to harm the Prophet. If that used to harm the Prophet, imagine saying his parents are in the hellfire. Right? Ladies and gentlemen.
Also, last point.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Where'd you find this? What book? Look at this. Dar al-Fath student, 1 year, Dar al-Mustafa, goes in and within 5 minutes finds us the evidence. Jawharat al-Tawheed, and this is what Sharh has this? Tuhfat al-Murid. Ala Jawharat al-Tawheed. Is this my book or yours? Yes. This is actually mine? Yeah. All right, I've been looking for this book. Okay. Anyway. All right. It says here, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Lam azal atanaqqal, where is it? Lam azal antaqilu min al-aslab al-tahirat. I continue to be transmitted from pure loins ila al-arham al-zakiyat, into pure wombs. And Allah says, innama al-mushrikuna najas. The mushriks are najas. But the Prophet said, I go from pure loins to pure wombs. وَهَذَا حَدِيثٌ مُتَوَاتِرٌ. Okay? All right? So, Allah says in the Quran, the mushrik is najas. The Prophet then says, all his forefathers were pure, and his foremothers were pure.
essentially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying that the believer and the disbeliever made of different stuff. You know, the disbeliever is najis, you know, the believer is pure.
Najasa ma'nawiyya.
Yeah.
Like it's a purity, and it's a purity, and it is a impurity that is of meaning.
Right, right.
Yeah.
This is something we can expound on later. But,
Yeah.
Because it's a lengthy topic that goes into other issues. But basically, in a nutshell, it's kufr or iman in your DNA.
La.
Yeah. No.
La.
Yeah, no.
So you what were you born then?
Say what?
If there's kufr and iman in the DNA, they're saying that they're taking it that literally, the innama al-mushrikuna najas, that the pagans are impure, that they're actually impure in their constitution. No, it means that the shirk is an impurity of the heart, that is an unseen impurity. And possibly they didn't take ghusl because they don't believe in ghusl. So they're najis in that respect, right? But
Otherwise, there'll be no Muslim.
yeah, but then again, if I pray, right? And let's say my mom is in a wheelchair and my mom's not a Muslim, hypothetically. I'm praying and I want to make sure the wheelchair doesn't roll away and I hold her hand. Innama al-mushrikuna najas. Is my salah sahih or not? Because I'm holding najasa? No, the mom is not najis, right? She's not najis. A mushrik person is not najis. It's ma'nawi, it's in meaning that the shirk is najas. What did they say? Because they said that they hold that the mushrik is actually najis.
No Muslim that I know of has said this, but I don't know if you're familiar with the Christian Anthony Patch.
No.
Anthony Patch, you know, he was a popular Christian cleric during the COVID-19
No, I don't know you.
pandemic. But so he spoke out against taking the vaccine because because of the altering of the DNA.
Yeah.
So he was basically saying that by taking the vaccine for the alteration of your DNA, it will cut you off from the from the mercy of God. And there's some Muslims that did entertain in this discussion. They didn't definitively say that it's the case.
So they're just speculating.
Yeah, it's not,
Okay.
it's not a speculation.
Okay. Is personality disorder something in Islam? It could possibly be. Mental disorders are for sure sicknesses. That's for sure sicknesses. How we treat them is different. Okay. There is an Islamic psychology YouTube channel, but in Islam we do believe in mental sickness. There's no doubt about that. Okay. So, but what we were criticizing the whole time is that whole treatment of the mental sickness that seemed more like an arrogant fraud to me, selfish and arrogant fraud than someone with a mental sickness. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to go, unfortunately. Okay. This stack of books that At Your Service is asking about is Al-Jami' لأحكام القرآن لسيدنا أبي عبد الله محمد ibn Ahmed al-Ansari al-Qurtubi, also known as Tafsir al-Qurtubi. And it is 10 or 11 volumes long. And we read from it every once in a while. And this book that we just read from you, this is our go-to summary of the Ash'ari Creed, Jawharat at-Tawheed, with the commentary of Sayyidina Ibrahim, the commentary of Al-Imam al-Bayjuri, sometimes pronounced al-Bajuri, Jawharat at-Tawheed, written by al-Laqani, the Egyptian, and the commentary of al-Bajuri, known as Tuhfat al-Murid. It's not a big book. It's only 330 pages. Very easy to read. Good footnotes, takhrij, very good print and copy that gives you the subject matter on the side, the metin in red, the commentary in black, and the footnoting of the ahadith. I really like this copy. And I haven't seen it in my house for a long time. Turns out it was in the studio, and the barakah of this subject has brought it back to me. Okay, so you got to read from this book every once in a while, because that's our go-to book. We don't say that that is the only sound aqeedah. The Hanabila have a sound aqeedah, but we say that that's what we study at least. Jazakumullah khairan.
So
Yeah.
basically, that's the Ash'ari's version of Kitab al-Tawheed.
Kitab al-Tawheed, from the aspect that they always go to it as their number one book. Yeah, this is our number one book. Yeah. He caught me off guard on that one. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله